For this presentation, I will be talking about Renaissance composer William Byrd. Here is a portrait of him that was painted in the middle of his life by an unknown artist. William Byrd was born in London during the time of the establishment of the Church of England. While his exact birth date is unknown, it is assumed that he was born around the year 1540. He was one of 7 children and born into a very musical family. His early life is very unknown due to the lack of records kept. Information about time before his early 20s, when he surfaced into the world of music, can be inferred but not confirmed. He lived the majority of his life during the time of the reign of King Henry VIII and his multiple wives. In September of 1568, Byrd married Julian Burleigh, who he had at least 7 children with. He lived a long and musical life until his death on July 4, 1623. In his early 20s, he became the organist of the Lincoln Cathedral in Lincoln, England, which is a part of the county town of Lincolnshire on the east coast of England. He was a pupil and protege of the famous English composer and organist Thomas Tallis. Byrd studied organ under Tallis, while also learning about his composition style and how he wrote his compositions. Years later, Byrd was cited for certain matters alleged against him, which is possibly due to his compositions containing what officials called over-elaborate choral polyphony and organ playing. After being cited another time for almost the exact same thing, he did back off on it for a short period of time, but eventually he decided to continue writing what he wanted because the citation did not stop him from wanting to write what he heard and play what he wanted to play. The 1560s were important for the formation of William Byrd as a composer. He wrote parts for Anglican services, which seem to have been designed to comply with the Protestant reformers' demand for clear words and simple musical textures. In conjunction with his choral music, he had also done some work with instrumental music. He wrote 7 in nomine settings, at least 1 consort fantasia, and many keyboard works. He also wrote 2 large-scale psalm motets, Ad Dominum cum Tribularar and Domine qui habitabit. William Byrd composed for many genres, both in the choral and instrumental worlds. He wrote virginal and organ music that elevated keyboard music in style. However, what he is best known for is his development of the English madrigal. The madrigal is a secular vocal music composition that is usually unaccompanied. Byrd brought the English madrigal to life by taking the ideas of madrigals from other countries and slightly changing them, both in the dialect used in the lyrics as well as slightly changing up the style in terms of a number of voice parts and harmonies. When writing his music, William Byrd was very knowledgeable of the ratio between 2 notes and how they related to each other. He was also well informed in the scales and modes he based his music around. At the time he was composing, the whole concept of music began to evolve. It went from tonal music, where it did not have a specific key, to having a starting pitch that the melody was based around. He wrote very polyphonic music that had upwards of 9 different vocal parts. Each part was very different from each other at moments, and at other times they were very similar. He greatly enjoyed dense but consonant harmonies. His music has a very light feeling to it, while still being very strong and powerful. The first piece you will be listening to is titled Ad Dominum cum Tribular. This piece was written early in his time as a composer of vocal music. Here's a recording of the piece. Ad Dominum cum Tribularar is an eight-voice psalm motet written by William Byrd when he was a very ambitious young composer. This piece was considered very ahead of its time. He was very keen about using eight-voice polyphony for this piece to be able to build this sort of soundscape idea that contained a lot of movement and slight dissonance between the different vocal parts. While the writing style throughout this piece is very uniform, the harmonies created by those parts were very different from the status quo of the time. The next piece is titled Domine qui habitabit. This piece was written around the same time as the first, except this piece has a very different feel to it. Domine qui habitavit is different than the first piece in the sense that this piece has 9 voice parts opposed to just 8 voice parts. Another point is that the lyrics used in this piece have commonly been used throughout many vocal compositions of the Renaissance. This piece, still being polyphonic, has very moving but consonant parts. It is slightly more dissonant than the first piece because of the denser, closer intervallic motion between each part. There are moments of the piece that are very dissonant due to the major and minor second intervals between 2 or more of the parts. This piece, even though it was written around the same time as the previous, has what we would consider more current techniques of writing music, while the first followed more of the rules and style of the time. Both of these pieces demonstrate William Byrd's style in many different ways. Both pieces are vocal pieces written early in his life, meaning he took the knowledge that he got from his mentor Thomas Tallis, another well-known vocal music composer and organist of the time, and then added in closer, denser harmonies with more vocal parts, singing different rhythms and melodies at the same time to create a consonant yet sometimes dissonant polyphony. Many of his pieces contain this type of polyphony, and sometimes this kind of music will get him in trouble with people of higher roles in both the church and the state. He would have very close intervals, such as major and minor seconds, that would come together at some points during the piece that would create this very dissonant quality, as if almost being a wrong note, while still keeping the piece in the original mode. Due to the many vocal parts that he wrote for, he was able to convey this sense of clutter and movement, which he would then bring together at the end of the piece in a very nice, what we now call, major 1 chord at the very end. This was noticeable in the first piece, Ad Dominum cum tribular, in terms of the texture. However, the dissonance and clutter was even more noticeable in the second piece, Domine quis habitavit, because of the major and minor second intervals that appeared within this piece. In terms of extra musical context, he lived during the early years of the establishment of the Church of England. It was established by King Henry VIII, who was upset with the Catholic Church because they would not give him an annulment so he could get remarried in the church to his many other wives. He decided to create the Church of England so that he could get remarried as many times as he wanted without any repercussion. William Byrd was involved in the Church of England for the earlier portion of his life, as both a participant and as a composer. Later in life, he began to participate more in the Catholic Church, which really impacted both his personal and creative life. William Byrd was very important to the narrative of Western music history in so many ways. First off, he was one of the first composers to branch into having 8 or more voices singing different parts, both in terms of rhythm as well as pitch and motion. He also helped the world of Western music progress into the intentional dissonance era. He was one of the first composers of vocal music to go and purposefully write music to have different voice parts clash with each other. He did this by using major and minor seconds, as well as other dissonant intervals found within a single mode without the use of chromatic pitches. It is a feat that is difficult but very possible and was well achieved by William Byrd. He took what he was given, put them in ways that had rarely been thought of before, and then created pieces of music that has a cluttered, dissonant feel that is similar to current modern music, while still having this beautiful resonant sound of other music of the Renaissance. He has made a huge impact on Western music history, and I am honored that I was able to do research on such an amazing composer. Here are my sources for which everything I have said is backed up by. Thank you.